If you look at the demographic story of the United States over the last few decades, it sounds like a tale of booming Sunbelt cities, sprawling suburbs, and once small towns becoming major metros. Texas has exploded, Florida has exploded. Even places like Tennessee and the Carolinas are drawing in hundreds of thousands of new residents. But in the middle of the continent, there is a glaring exception: Illinois. This is the state that once symbolized the American heartland. Chicago's skyscrapers, the factories and rail yards that built the 20th century, the cornfields that fed a continent. Yet today, Illinois is one of the few states in the entire country that has been consistently losing people year after year. Entire neighborhoods are thinning out. Small towns are fading. Political power is shifting away as congressional seats disappear. How did a state that sits at the physical and economic crossroads of the country start emptying out? To understand why Illinois is emptying out, we first have to understand why it boomed in the first place. On a map of the United States, Illinois almost feels like an accident of geography that was destined to be important. The state touches the Mississippi River to the west, the Ohio River not far to the southeast, and the Great Lakes to the northeast. It sits at the junction of America's inland waterway system, the Eastern Rail Network, and later, its interstate highways. From the rich black soils of central Illinois to the prairies of the north, the land is so level and so fertile. In the 19th century, it was almost like a blank canvas for the industrial and agricultural revolutions. You could plow it, grid it, that combination, navigable water, flat terrain, and central location, created what was effectively the Inland Empire of the Midwest. And at the heart of that empire was Chicago. Perched on the southwestern shore of Lake Michigan, Chicago became the hinge between the Great Lakes and the Mississippi River system. When the Illinois and Michigan Canal opened in the 1840s, and later when railroads converged there from every direction, the city transformed from a muddy frontier outpost into the trade and transport hub of a continent. Grain from Iowa and central Illinois moved through Chicago. Cattle and hogs from the Great Plains arrived there to be slaughtered and shipped east. Rail lines carried immigrants from the East Coast into the interior of the country, and commodities from the interior back out to distant markets. This did not just build a city, it built a state. Southern Illinois boomed with coal mines. Central Illinois filled up with prosperous farming communities and manufacturing centers like Peoria and Decatur. Northern Illinois fed workers and freight into the Chicago machine. For decades, the state's population rose steadily. If you wanted to move goods or people across America, you passed through Illinois. By the mid-20th century, Illinois had become a demographic heavyweight. Machines, steel, food, rail cars, and later cars and electronics were manufactured, packed, and shipped from its cities. Chicago became the second largest city in the United States. In 1950, Illinois had roughly 8.7 million residents. By the year 2000, that number had climbed to around 12.4 million. On paper, the state looked like a permanent winner of the 20th century. But hidden in that success story was a quiet vulnerability. The same geography that made Illinois so powerful also made it strangely easy to leave behind. If you can put a factory on a flat cornfield in Illinois, you can put it on a cheaper cornfield in Indiana, or Tennessee, or Texas. Chicago's prosperity rested on industries that depended on cheap labor, heavy manufacturing, and centralized distribution. Railroads, meatpacking, steel, and large-scale factories. Throughout the mid-1900s, those sectors began to change. Container ships took over global trade. Highways let trucks compete with trains. Automation made it possible to produce more with fewer workers. Globalization opened cheaper labor markets overseas. Meatpacking moved to lower-cost plants closer to where livestock was raised, Steel production shifted toward coastal ports or left the country entirely. Many factories automated or left in search of cheaper wages and looser regulations. Jobs started leaving faster than people did. Neighborhoods on Chicago's south and west sides, once built around steel mills and stockyards, saw factories close and never reopen. In smaller cities like Rockford, Peoria, and East St. Louis, one major employer shutting down could send shockwaves through an entire local economy. The flat land that had once been an asset became, in a sense, interchangeable. If you could build your plant on a cornfield in Illinois, you could just as easily build it on a cheaper cornfield in another state. At the same time, Illinois' political and fiscal systems were built around the assumption that the old industrial economy would keep paying the bills forever. As manufacturing and population growth slowed, the state kept making long-term commitments to pensions, infrastructure, and local school systems. Over time, the numbers stopped adding up. Public debt rose, pension liabilities became some of the most severe in the nation. Property taxes in many communities soared as local governments tried to maintain services with a shrinking or stagnant base of homeowners and employers. For ordinary residents, this turned into a simple, painful reality. Wages stagnated, taxes felt high, services often did not improve, and the sense of opportunity, especially outside of Metro Chicago, began to fade. That is when people started leaving. From around 2014 onward, Illinois began to consistently lose residents in net terms. More people were leaving Illinois for other United States than were coming in, and the gap kept growing. Large numbers of former Illinoisans have headed to places like Texas, Florida, Tennessee, Indiana, and Wisconsin. Some are retirees chasing lower costs and warmer weather. Many more are working-age adults and families chasing job markets that are growing faster, housing that is cheaper, and tax burdens that feel lighter. This outmigration has a compounding effect. When working-age adults leave, that means fewer births in Illinois. As the remaining population ages, deaths gradually catch up, schools consolidate or close. Local businesses lose customers. Young people who stay see fewer local opportunities and are more likely to leave later. Illinois is not shrinking as fast as some smaller rural states, and Chicago itself still attracts international migrants and college graduates. But the pattern is stark enough that the 2020 census recorded a net loss of residents and cost Illinois a congressional seat, reducing its influence in Washington. If you map population change across Illinois, a sharp contrast emerges. The core of Metro Chicago keeps most of its people and even adds some, but much of the rest of the state either stagnates or declines. Entire swaths of southern and western Illinois are losing residents. Some towns are down by a quarter or more from their peak population. Others show a quieter hollowing out. If you zoom in closer though, Illinois' story is not just one of decline. It is one of uneven transformation. Chicago, for all its challenges, has attracted investment in fields like logistics, finance, food technology, and higher education. Its role as a national and global transportation hub has not vanished. It has simply changed form from rail cars and stockyards to intermodal yards and O'Hare's web of flights and freight. Startups spin out of university labs. Major companies set up offices to tap into engineering talent. The population there has been far more stable. These are still small trends compared to the overall outmigration, and they have not reversed the state's population losses, but they suggest that emptying out does not have to be Illinois' final identity. It can be a phase in a longer transition, from industrial heavyweight built on railroads and stockyards to a more networked, distributed state built on knowledge, logistics, and quality of life. Ultimately, the story of Illinois is a reminder that geography is powerful, but not destiny. The flat land and central location that once guaranteed growth now simply guarantee competition. The infrastructure that once made Chicago the only game in town now connects people and businesses to alternatives. Whether Illinois continues to lose people, stabilizes, or eventually grows again will depend on how it chooses to adapt. Whether it can reform the systems built for the 20th century, invest in the people and places being left behind, and leverage its geography for a very different economic era. For now, the census numbers tell a clear story. Illinois is indeed emptying out. But if you look closely, you can see another story starting to be written in the shadow of the old one.